So it's interesting. It's become a weird, stark line drawn in the sand of Baker Mayfield under 2.5 seconds on a throw and Baker Mayfield over that. I think last night was 5 of 18 when he had over 2.5 seconds, longer than 2.5 seconds to throw on this one. And it goes back to last night. We've had this conversation about this team and their offensive line for most of the season. Last night was the first time where I looked and really thought they were the culprit. And it's hard to really be all that mad about because the guy that was victimizing them was Aaron Donald.
I was about to say, this.
What are you going to do?
This was the quintessential game where you would look at the box score and say he only had 1 sack. He destroyed their game plan. He destroyed it.
Well, you know what I didn't realize is that last year Aaron Donald didn't have his first sack until week 4.
Yeah.
And then went on to have 20.5.
Yes.
So
it's ridiculous.
To
that point, he got his first one last night.
He got his first one last night. I think he was the part of 6 pressures was essentially the spear point on that. He was abusing the interior offensive line for the Cleveland Browns, and he's the best player in football, so it's hard to really get mad at them for that.
How quickly between him and then Clay Matthews out on the outside of how quickly they were getting pressure on Baker Mayfield, especially on those plays by the goal line. But I mean, and Aaron Donald was equal opportunity. He was lining up on everybody, including their best lineman, Joel Bitonio, the left guard. Yeah. He was lining up right over him, and he just does it to everybody. Watching him play, and if the play is away from him, watching him close down the line is obscene.
Yeah,
I mean, it truly is obscene how good that guy is.
You got a haircut.
I did get a haircut.
It looks good. Tedy Bruschi always says, if you stop watching the ball, you might learn something. Just watch Aaron Donald.
Well, he's usually by the ball.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he gets to the ball,
exactly.
But start watching Aaron Donald, and you'll see some amazing things. We also saw some really questionable things in that game from the Browns in terms of play calling down the stretch. For example, there was a 4th and 9 with about 3 minutes left in that game?
On the 40-yard line.
Yeah, the 40-yard line. They're down, and it was 17-13, so they're going for it. And on 4th and 9, Freddie Kitchens called a draw play.
Yeah.
Now, listen, if it works, no one says a damn thing about it. Great play call, innovative, blah, blah, blah. But it didn't work. And we actually ran the numbers. Since ESPN Stats and Information has been keeping track of these play calls since 2007, we could not find one instance of a draw play being called on 4th and 9 or worse. Not one. So since
you mean that worked or was called?
That was called. Oh. So, I mean, this was brand new territory and obviously did not work. And obviously, after the game, Freddie Kitchens was asked about that specific play call.
But honestly, I'm happy to admit it because a lot of times you don't get somebody admitting something. And he just said, yeah, it's the call I wanted, and it was a bad call. I mean, it was pretty simple, right?
It is. And as a player, that's all you can ask for is that the coach stand up and do that. But also, it's, all right, that can't happen more and more times because it's the same thing you're told as a player, which is, it's fine if you make a mistake, but especially in professional football, if you become a repeat offender of the same mistake and you get in those instances again, now you breach a trust.
Well, and that's normally what gets a player benched or cut.
Yes.
Is when you make the same mistakes. That's the one thing I know my father told me and I told you guys, you're going to make mistakes. Don't make the same mistake twice. Just don't. Mental or physical, you got to learn from your mistakes, but especially mental. So that's a great point there. And that wasn't the only questionable play calling that went on in that game.
They had a chance late in the game. They had 1st and goal, I think, from the
4-yard line, all 3 timeouts.
All 3 timeouts with 43 seconds left. They threw it all 4 times. Yeah. All 4 times, 3 incompletions, and then Johnson with the game-ending interception.
Their schedule is just torturous going forward. They just lost to L.A. They play at Baltimore coming off their loss. They play at undefeated San Francisco. Then they play home to Seattle and then at New England after the bye. So,
yikes.
But I guess it's fair to ask 3 games in, remember what Freddie Kitchens got the job because of how he handled Baker Mayfield as the interim offensive coordinator last year. Remember, he started the season as a running back coach, ended as an interim offensive coordinator, and the offense moved well. And what has been, before this game even happened, what has been the criticism of this offense? It doesn't look like it did last year. They weren't using the running game. He has a lot of toys on the outside. He was spreading them out, and the offense looked different, which was a legitimate criticism of this. And now you add on him admitting, and, again, we're glad he admits it, but they were a couple of errors in critical times of the game.
And that's what I mean. So now it's going to be going forward. Does that compound itself? And does that goodwill start to erode pretty quickly here? Because he's a guy also, it's going to be interesting to see what the leash is if this continues with the guy knowing how important Baker Mayfield is to the future of this franchise.
Because that was what's the biggest question of this team coming into the year.
Correct.
Was Freddie Kitchens.
Right. And the other thing, listen, a lot of people will say there's two things you can sort of blame on coaching. Sometimes it's penalties and turnovers, right? Whether are you taking too many chances, and are you addressing that? And they have had all kinds of problems with penalties. Another 8 penalties last night. I'm not sure. We're looking this up. I think they lead the league in terms of total penalties so far in the NFL. And that's some of the stuff that you're going to have to get with and get cleaned up. And those are things that can really bog down a franchise, especially as a first-year head coach. They have 46 penalties on the season, which is ridiculous through 3 games.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content plus live streaming, make sure to subscribe to ESPN Player.